listening to the Straight to Video podcast with Rob Lane.
All right, what is up? Hope you're doing great, and thanks for listening to the Straight to Video podcast. I know there's a lot of great shows out there, so I truly appreciate you choosing this one. On today's show, I check in with guitarist and songwriter Will Crewdson. Will has such a great and varied music CV after landing on the music scene in the mid-90s with the glam punk, metal, whatever you want to call them, the much-loved Rachel Stamp, who, in a scene that no longer wanted to embrace colourful, fun rock shows, this lot was something of a shining light and commanded an incredibly loyal underground following that saw them fill London's Astoria venue as an unsigned band, which was quite the feat. Since then, you may well have caught Will touring with the great band Flesh for Lulu, or perhaps The Selector, but he's maybe most well known for working with music icon Adam Ant, and is a longtime member of his band on tours all over the world. What is amazing though, which we talk about during our chat, is that Will's first ever live show as a music fan was Adam and the Ants back when he was just 11 years old, so talk about a real full circle musical journey. Outside of working with all these legendary artists, Will keeps very busy with his own music, particularly his bands Scant and She Made Me Do It, both totally different, which showcase Will's great musical abilities and certainly worth diving into or catching live. You can find Scant at scantregard.com and She Made Me Do It are at shemmdi.com. As always, before this episode's chat, please consider showing some support for our friends Dead Skull Coffee, who are offering you 15% off any order through their website at deadskullcoffee.co.uk. Simply add the promo code STV on checkout to grab the discount and know that you're supporting a true independent rock and roll company. Will be back out on tour with Adam Ant next year in the UK during February and March, and tickets are on sale now. But in the meantime, please enjoy my straight-to-video chat with guitarist Will Crewdson. So whereabouts did you grow up? I know you always say you're from London, but was it kind of just outside the city itself, or was you pretty much very close to it?
Well, it was, very suburban where I grew up in Hampton. It's classified as London, but it's more like Middlesex, really. So, it could have been anywhere, really. Could have been anywhere in the UK, anywhere suburban. So, going into the West End was always really exciting. It's like a different world, even though I was just on the outskirts,
What are some of your earliest memories of visiting the city? Was it always like a big deal as a kid, or did it eventually just become the norm?
I mean, I was lucky enough. I actually ended up going to music college when I was about, how old was I? 13 or something. And that was Marylebone around there. So that was like my big sort of eye-opening experience, was going there every week and walking to Oxford Street and going to HMV and just looking at all the records, trying to save up to buy them.
Did the city ever kind of seem dangerous or daunting back then? Does that make sense? Sometimes places like that are, especially with people who are outside of the city, it's like, holy crap, this place is terrifying to some people.
I never got that impression. I mean, not in the daylight, but as soon as I started going out at night and taking night buses and things like that, because you always get mental people on them, so
meet some characters.
for want of a better term. Yeah, characters. Yeah, that's a better way to put it. You kind of come across some strange people in the middle of the night, but that's probably the same everywhere, all over the world, really, I'd have thought.
So how far was you from the city? I mean, did you ever go into like to see films or cinemas or anything like that? Or did you have like a local cinema near your hometown? It
was like if there was a really big film coming up, like I can remember going to see Predator and going to, making a big deal of it and going to Leicester Square. And I always remember someone, when he took his helmet off or whatever and you saw his dreadlocks and someone shouted Rasta at him, I always remember that. I don't think that would have happened in Richmond or wherever it was near me.
Great stuff. And you gravitated towards music really early. I think you did piano at 7 and then classical guitar at 9. Was that something your family wanted you to do, or was you already becoming a fan and listening to particular artists?
They definitely wanted me to have music lessons because I started having piano lessons. That was all my parents wanting me to do that, really. I must have been into music, before that. So, I had piano lessons. That was all classical, and then I did guitar. I think it was my idea to start getting guitar lessons a couple of years after that. But that was all classical as well, to start with. But I was never into that. I just kind of went along with it just for the sake of learning the technicalities of playing, really, I guess.
Did you enjoy that side of it, like the theory side of it? Was that something you was able to take on board easily?
Yeah, I mean, I got all the grades. Like I got up to grade 8 and all that. And it was always preferable to all the other subjects at school, I guess, But even so, I wasn't really into classical music, I did percussion lessons as well. That was kind of a bit more exciting. And then I got a drum kit and stuff like that. And I just tried everything, really.
Was there many outlets for you to do it at school, or was that why you went to study it in London later on?
There was, but it was kind of like, because I got into the Royal Academy and I got a grant from the school to be able to do that. So it was kind of like another level of learning, So I just went along with it, And like I say, I had to go there once a week and go into the West End. And it was kind of quite exciting, really.
Did you meet any cool people there, or was everybody kind of different to you? Did you fit in?
No, I didn't. I never really fitted in at school or these places, really. There was very few people doing guitar, actually. So, I mean, I sort of made friends with a couple of people that were doing that and a couple of people that were doing percussion. But I can't say that I've kept in touch with any of them. So they obviously didn't leave that much of a lasting impression. No, everyone was cool,
What kind of music was you listening to at the time then? So you were studying the classical stuff, but what kind of stuff was you getting off on?
I was just into like really dark, well, to me it was dark at the time, Depeche Mode, Cabaret Voltaire, industrial stuff kind of before industrial was even invented. Loads of electronic stuff, actually, I was more into than guitar. So that's kind of why I still kind of mix that with what I do now, really. Yeah, that's kind of a hangover of that, I guess.
Where would you find out all the new albums and tapes and things like that? Was it when you went into London, like you say, to Tower Records or HMV, or did you have a local record store back where you lived?
There was Our Price back then, which was quite good, I guess. And I used to know people that worked there, and they used to get me stuff. Basically, everyone that worked in Our Price, it's okay to say this now because it doesn't exist anymore, but everyone that worked in Our Price used to hide stock and then take it home,
Just in Our Price? Was that an Our Price, a running theme?
I think so. It should have been called No Price, really, I think. But HMV, as I said, HMV was really exciting. And when Tower Records opened, and that was open till midnight, that was just like, wow, you can actually go to a club and then go and buy a record afterwards. That was really exciting.
Because they used to do like in-stores and things like that, HMV and Tower Records. Did you ever do any of them?
Yeah. I went to meet Depeche Mode a couple of times, actually, and got my albums signed.
Was that chaos?
Yeah, it was. It was nothing like when they had one in LA and it was like riots. It was nothing like that, but it was quite well behaved, maybe because it was in UK, But that was kind of just when they were they were pretty big then, but they weren't sort of as massive as they got in the 90s and all that. But so that was really exciting, I can remember they were all really drunk, actually. So they were just kind of like trying to get through it. It must have been hell, really, for them to sit there for hours and sort of smile at everyone. I guess that helped, didn't it, the alcohol?
Encountering what I think is one of the coolest full circle moments I've heard about. Your first gig was actually Adam and the Ants, right, when you was 11 years old?
That's right, yeah. I went to see the Prince Charming review at Drury Lane Theatre, and it was like it was probably nothing's ever been done like that since, and nothing before that, really, because it was just a full production. It was more like a play, it was more like kind of watching Pirates of the Caribbean or something, because there was like costume changes, dancers. I remember he put lavender on the seats because he read somewhere that I think they used to do that in Victorian times, that just to create a nice ambience in the theatre. And I always, every time I smell lavender, I just think of Adam and the Ants.
It stuck with you all that time, that smell. Yeah? That's nuts.
But that was really exciting.
How much of a fan was you at that point? Had you been listening a lot to the music?
I think everyone at my school was really into them at that point. But not everyone at my school had made the effort to actually go and see the band, I don't think, because as I say, we're sort of on the outskirts of London. But yeah, I was really into it. Yeah, I was painting the white stripe on my nose and all that.
Super. Who did you go with?
I went with my mum, actually.
Awesome.
Because I was really young, So, and she actually left halfway through because it was too loud. We were quite near the front and it was too loud for her. So I was actually sitting there on my own. And I kind of quite enjoyed being there on my own. I actually still enjoy going to gigs on my own and just, really getting into it.
I always think that because, you can't talk to anybody when a gig's playing.
That's the thing, yeah.
I just want to watch the gig.
Yeah. So, I really don't mind stuff like that.
With that being like such a theatrical performance, was you expecting that from gigs afterwards? It's like later gigs, like, oh, this is a bit stripped back.
Exactly, yeah. Everything after that was a bit basic, really. But then obviously, you get into bands and certain types of, you get into their music so much that the music is enough, and the presence of actually being in the room with the band is just cool enough, without having a pirate ship.
Exactly. Yeah. Was there much of a gap after that Adam and the Ants gig to your next gig, or was you all in, like, I need more gigs after that initial one?
I wanted to go and see Japan after that, but my mum said it would be too loud. I've never forgiven her for that. Never forgiven her, because I would have liked, that was the last tour Japan ever did as well, and I love I still listen to them a lot, actually, and I love Mick Karn's bass playing, and that would have just been great. So the next gig didn't actually happen. I can't remember who I saw after that. Maybe that was Depeche Mode after that, and that was really impressive because that was like Wembley or something.
All right, cool,
big deal.
Yeah, nice. Like you say, you've been learning classical guitar. When was the switch to electric and looking at starting your first band or playing with your mates or that kind of thing?
Well, I was sort of probably in the last year of school. I knew I wanted to form a band. Actually, no, I was at college because I formed a band with my best friend at college, Thomas. And I bought a semi-acoustic Epiphone Sheraton because I thought it looked quite rock and roll. And we formed a band called Jetpack.
That's a great name. I heard you mention that before. That's a great band name.
Yeah, I think there's been a few bands called that since, but we spelled it with a C rather than a CK. So we were trying to be a bit different. We had a really good logo as well.
Not two Ks.
Not two Ks, no.
JETPA.
No, someone else can have that one. So yeah, and at that point there was a lot of sort of electronic rock and roll happening with Sputnik, Zig Sputnik and stuff like that, and we were all really into that.
Was this around that time then, kind of like, when was Sputnik? Was it like 86, 87 kind of?
Exactly, yeah, 86, 87. So yeah, we had a drum machine and we just used to sort of bang out tunes on that, and live we didn't have a drummer either. So yeah, we were kind of going for that sort of thing. So that lasted a couple of years, I guess, yeah. What
kind of shows was you doing? I guess you're still pretty young then in your first shows which you do. I don't know. I think it's a lot different for bands nowadays. A lot of bands kind of start off now and their initial shows are like pretty good gigs. Whereas back in the day, you'd play some right crap places anywhere that'd have you.
Well, the first gig we did, or I ever did, was at the Bull and Gate.
Well, that's a pretty good one.
Well, exactly. Yeah, at the time, that was like, that was all through Thomas. He sort of made friends with everyone. And there was like a band called Soho. They had like one hit, I think, sort of early 90s. We used to go and see them. And it was Tim from Soho that got us that gig there at the Bull and Gate. And I remember Thomas came on, he had like a ping pong ball laser gun thing and he'd like fire ping pong balls at everyone. So he never told me he was going to do that. But I thought, well, at least that's quite theatrical, I suppose,
Was there many people there to see you that first show?
Yeah, because like a lot of friends came, basically, and that was probably the last time they came. No, a few of them came to the other ones.
That's a great gig, because I always used to remember seeing because I'm from like Derby, Nottingham way, so when a band played in London, it was always a cool thing, but I always remember the Bull and Gate because it had that cool kind of backdrop. It's like a real statement that you're playing there kind of thing, like the 100 Club. When you play at the 100 Club, it's got that amazing backdrop. And the Marquee, obviously, back in the day, always kind of made a statement with that backdrop to it.
That's true, actually. Yeah. I know. I saw a lot of great bands like really early on. Like I remember seeing Adamski. He had a band called Discord Datcord. I remember seeing them there, and he had his dog with him and stuff. And the dog was terrified of the noise. But I saw Jesus Jones there. I think it was like their first gig or something. Just bands that did go on to do really well.
Did you start going into London quite regularly then, once you kind of got a taste of it at college and you were getting in your late teens, or did you actually move there around that time?
No, I was still kind of in southwest London. I moved to Shepherd's Bush. That was a bit nearer when I moved there. Used to go to the Marquee a lot, actually. There was a club there called Gigantic that these guys, Jonathan and Eco, used to do. And they also did Camden Palace. They play the same alternative indie music, and so me and my friends would just go to those, and it was literally like 3 times a week at least. That became a sort of habit.
Do you feel like you was getting into kind of a scene? You was enjoying that entire environment?
Yeah, definitely, yeah. The good thing about the Camden Palace one was there was always a band that went on at midnight. and they'd just play for half an hour because it was a club. It wasn't like a full show or anything. So I saw loads of great bands there, like Flesh for Lulu. And then we ended up playing there with Rachel Stamp. I think it was like the last week of it. So that was full circle.
Yeah, definitely. How did your music taste evolve through like the late 80s and into the early 90s pre-Rachel Stamp? Because a lot kind of happened at the turn of the decade. Did you find yourself diving into older stuff, or was the modern music you were finding exciting?
Yeah, that's a bit of a weird period because it was kind of like, I guess that's when grunge took off and all that. And I've never been sort of completely rock. Whatever kind of rock trend came up, it's more than a trend, I know, but whatever trend came up, I sort of tried to avoid. I just tried to keep myself open to loads of different stuff. So around that time, what was I listening to around that time? I don't know. Probably still listen to Depeche Mode, really.
Yeah.
It always comes back to them because they're just like on another level.
Well, I think they were doing a fair bit of stuff around the early 90s, weren't they? They kind of got some more chart success and came back into the mainstream a little bit. They had some cool stuff going off around that time.
Yeah, no, they started selling tons then. But yeah, at these clubs I'm talking about, they would play everything. There was loads of stuff like Pot Will Eat Itself around, and I used to go and see the Gay Bikers on Acid a lot. Like I said, Flesh for Lulu. Yeah, stuff like that, really.
What had you been doing career-wise before Rachel Stamp? Was you doing like session work and getting your name around that way? Because did I see you mention you did some stuff for Malcolm McLaren? Was that pre-Rachel Stamp or afterwards?
That was before Rachel Stamp. That was like a totally one-off thing that I did. I mean, that was the first session I'd ever done. And that was through meeting Lee Gorman, who was in Bow Wow Wow. I met him through a friend, and he was looking for a guitarist to play on this track that he was working on with Malcolm McLaren, which was for the Carry On film, Carry On Columbus. I think, if I'm right, that was the last ever Carry On film. If you see the film, you can sort of see why.
Ideas had run out by that point.
Yeah, it wasn't the best. So I got asked to do that. I went in for a day, Air Studios, which is like a massive studio in Oxford Street on the top floor, and they were telling me all about when Sid Vicious was in there, like hanging out of the window and stuff. And so and I did that with Malcolm McLaren, who was, I got to say, I was like 19 or something. He was bloody terrifying.
Yeah.
Because I don't think he looked me in the eye once. He basically he turned towards the mixing desk while I was recording actually, and just said, "Give it some bollocks, my son," like this, So I tried my best to do that. And then I was kind of dismissed. I don't know if they got anyone else in after that, but basically they still used what I'd done. What I did was I basically just copied this Mudhoney riff from Touch Me, I'm Singing. I copied that. And if you can ever, actually, it might be on Spotify. It's the theme from Carry On Columbus. It's kind of like a techno orchestral extravaganza, but it's got this rock and roll bit in the middle. And that's me on that. Got paid £60 for that. I would say, back then that was a lot, but I don't think it was even back then,
When did you see the finished article? Did you get to see it on the film?
I did, but unfortunately, I don't think I saw the film at the cinema. I watched it on the BBC, and they had this thing where they used to speed up the credits at the end.
Yes.
I mean, obviously at the theatre, you would have seen the whole song. You'd have heard the whole song. And I think it was just getting to my bit. And,
oh, shit.
And then it went, so it's like, okay, welcome to the music business.
Got all the family round. I'm coming up. up.
Exactly. I had the VHS all ready to record. Never mind. But I did see it. I doubt if it will get shown anymore, but it's probably on YouTube.
I think it was in 1994 you answered an ad in Melody Maker for a band. I don't know if I got this right or not, but was it a band wanting a guitarist into Jellyfish and Sonic Youth?
That's right. It was actually, yeah. I forgot he said Sonic Youth, but yeah, you're right. I thought, wow, because no one was talking about Jellyfish back then. I mean, they're still quite a bit of an enigma, really, aren't they? And I just thought, well, this guy's got good taste,
This sounds interesting.
Yeah. And then when I met up with him, I mentioned the band Red Cross, who I was really into at that point.
I love Red Cross.
And he was he hadn't even heard me play, and he was just like, okay, that's it, you're a guitarist.
I've had Stephen McDonald on the podcast a few months ago.
Oh, great. Yeah.
Yeah, he's awesome. They've got such a history. It's unbelievable.
Oh, yeah. No, it's great. And they always stuck by their guns, didn't they, really? All the best bands do, yeah.
What were your first impressions of David when you met, or his impressions of you, do you think?
Well, like I say, I just think he could tell I was on the same wavelength, really. And just from what we were both into, he was a bit more into Kiss than me, but tried to make an effort with Kiss, but it's always been, I don't know, never quite got there. But I just thought it was cool because he already had a publishing deal as well, which I was really impressed by. It just seemed like it was going to be a great band if we got the right people together, because at that point it was just me and him, really. The first gig we didn't even rehearse. I think we did 3 songs at Subterfuge, which is like part of Heaven, the nightclub Heaven. That was actually a really cool gig. Like Dave Stewart was there. Basically, David was signed to Anxious Publishing, which is Dave Stewart's publishing label.
How long had David been in London when you met?
I think he'd only just arrived a couple of months before that, as far as I know. Yeah, from Wales. Yeah, he just set up in North London, and yeah, we did that gig. We did do that gig pretty soon after I met him. Then we did a couple more, literally about 4 more, and then we got signed to Warner's.
Was it like instant interest in the band then? Was that through the publishing deal, or was it because you were just so different to everybody else?
I don't know. It's I guess, yeah, the publishing deal probably opened a few doors. Probably a few industry people spoke to each other about us. I think that people could see there was something special about David when they came to see it straight away. I think despite all that, there were a lot of bands being signed at that point. It's not like today. It's kind of, to get a major deal was, it's not the easiest thing in the world even then, but it was, there was a lot more going on.
Did you feel like you was onto something special right from the start with everything moving so fast? Was this different to anything you'd done before? Could you feel like it was a step up?
Yeah, because I'd had sort of a few bands before that we just played around London and no touring or anything, So as soon as we got signed, we just went on tour with Rachel Stamp, and it was just like that. I'd never experienced that before, So yeah, that was a different experience, absolutely.
Unfortunately, you're a band that suffered from record label shuffles and ultimately lost the deal, but unusually you were a band that got bigger afterwards because of your fan base just grew and grew, culminating in selling out the Astoria in London as an unsigned band. How was it seeing that fan base growing? Yeah, you're right. We definitely got a lot bigger as soon as we lost our deal with Warner's, because basically the guy that signed us left for EMI pretty soon after that, after we got signed. So they put out a couple of singles. I mean, there was a lot of money behind it. We did some expensive videos and stuff, but it was all quite fruitless, really, because no one knew who we were. We weren't getting on the radio, apart from when Chris Evans played our first single and thought we were the Spice Girls. How did that happen?
Well, basically, they came out at the same time. I think their single came out the same week. That, Wannabe, Tell You What I Want, What I Fucking Want, or whatever. That came out the same week as our single. We didn't have any photos of us on the cover of ours, and it was quite a girly looking cover. It was quite like a pink cover with, I'd copied this Dolly Parton pinball machine logo for our logo. So that was kind of, there's a heart on it and stuff like that. So yeah, and I think his producer had been sort of pushing the Spice Girls on him and kind of going, oh, you got to play Spice Girls. And I think he was kind of a bit put off. He obviously didn't like being told what to play. So he was talking to his producer on the air saying, oh, have I really got to play this? Have I really got to play this? And he put Rachel Stamp on instead of the Spice Girls. He barely played a verse and he said, oh, this is just crap. And that was it. Did he still think that was the Spice Girls then, or did he realise that he'd put the wrong song on? I can't remember what happened, actually. I think maybe someone put him straight. I mean, I'm sure we tried to put him straight. Unfortunately, you can email people then and, tell them. I'm sure a lot of people would have. Was that on Radio 1 then? That was about when he was doing Radio 1? Yeah, it was like the breakfast show on Radio 1, so it's like tons of people listening. That's still got to be in the database somewhere. I'd love to hear that, yeah. Yeah, I'd love to hear that. That'd be amazing. So that's the story of our life, really. Who was it who pulled the trigger to book a show at somewhere as big as the Astoria? Was that something you all agreed on as a band and thought we can pull this off? Yeah, it was a bit of a big step up, but we'd done a couple of sort of supports at the Astoria. We'd supported No Doubt and Korn as well at that point, and that kind of coincided with a bit of play on XFM as well. It was building, and we played the Garage and places like that, and the next step up was the Astoria, I guess. Yeah, so we just went for it. We were really surprised it was packed out. It's good for a band in that kind of situation, because when you do something at the next level, the fan base rallies around, like, right, okay, this is something we have got to do and see and promote. They'll kind of get on board with it as well, so it just kind of magnifies the appeal in a way. Yeah, I think a lot of our fan base, it was quite an event to go and see us, and everyone would dress up and everything and glam up. So yeah, obviously, word got around that it was a fun night as well as being good. Who had you seen at the Astoria before that? I mean, because that's got to be a cool thing. One of London's premier venues, and you're finally playing it with your own band. Oh, the standout gig for me there was when I saw Warrior Soul there, I think, with a really cool lineup they had at that point. That was great. Who else did I see there? Well, we supported Cheap Trick there as well. That was really good. We were all Cheap Trick fans. You could pretty much go on the bill with anybody. No Doubt, Korn, Cheap Trick, like everyone. Totally different. It didn't go down that well with the Corn fans, unfortunately. There's some footage of that on YouTube of us getting torrential cans, and having to dodge for the whole half hour, But we still finished the set.
Was you pissing yourselves backstage, like afterwards? Like, that was amazing.
Me and David loved it, yeah, but the other two left the band after that.
Oh, shit.
It sorted out the men from the boys, so to speak, that gig. But that's when we got Robin after that, and that put us on another level, as a band, I think, because that was, he's like a completely different kind of drummer to the one we had before. But no, me and David loved it. To me, it made us play better because we were just like, fuck you, and that came across. Our attitude was just, really confrontational at that gig.
Was it pretty hostile from the first song as soon as you walked on, looking like you did? Yeah.
Clearly. But then by the end, we kind of won. I think they sort of, they were sort of impressed that we stood our ground, because this was like the first time Korn had played in London. So this was kind of, it was all this new metal thing was coming in, and we were doing this glammy T-Rex metal thing. In a couple of years, all those guys were wearing eyeliner and glitter anyway, even Metallica were, weren't they? So it was kind of, we were just a bit before the curve.
Another part of the whole Adamant timeline for you, didn't Adam come out to a Rachel Stamp show at the Garage in London? That's
right, yeah, he did. That's the first time I met him, actually, yeah. He was with Marco.
Did you know he was coming out?
Didn't know until the night, I think. And a friend of mine who worked for Anxious Records actually said, "Oh, Adam's here and he wants to say hi," and all this. So yeah, that was very cool. And I was just like, I said, "Oh, you're the first gig I ever went to," and he was like, doing the usual, trying to look interested, I guess, in that fact. So yeah, and Marco was with him as well, so that was very cool. And then a few weeks after that, they both came up and played with us at the Monarch in Camden. We had a gig there, and they came up and did a couple of our songs with us.
That must be pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, really cool. Yeah.
When was the point you actually got to work with him and become a member of the band? Was it initially just one-off projects?
This was like a long time after. I mean, I'm talking about the 90s when we first met him. And then I didn't see him. I mean, he kind of didn't do anything for about 10 years. And then he started playing around London in 2010. And I went to an acoustic thing he did. And I just started talking to him again and just said, "Oh, let me know if you need a guitarist," and he was like, "Oh, well, yeah, come down." Went down some rehearsal place. And it was like, I mean, because I know all the songs, I was just like, "Oh, let's do Xerox, let's do Stand and Deliver," or whatever, and I was just like, I was in heaven. It's just...
I said the saying, never meet your heroes, but you ended up working with yours.
Yeah, and then I sort of played with him for most of that year, and he was still kind of getting his footing back on the live circuit, really, at that point. So it was a few years afterwards when I finally ended up touring properly with him. But it was 2010 when I first started, yeah.
How are the differences with touring the US with Adam to performing here in the UK? How well known is he over there? Because I think like Goody Two Shoes was like top 20 on Billboard, but outside of that, is he the icon he is over there to what he is over here?
Oh, totally, yeah. It's I mean, he broke over there a lot later than over here because, as you say, with Goody Two Shoes, which was a couple of years after, Kings of the Wild Frontier and all that. So, but yeah, that was really big out there. Everyone, that's the song. It's like if people haven't heard of him for anything else, someone will say Adamant and they'll say, "Oh, Goody Two Shoes." He did do a lot of touring back in the 80s out there, so he built up a pretty solid following, yeah, which he still has, yeah.
Do you have any particular favourite places in America you like to play? Because I know you've been over there quite a few times and everywhere's so varied.
That's the fun thing. It's like, you're in a different country every day almost, it feels like. My favourite venue ever that I've ever played is the Greek Theatre in Los Angeles. It just feels luxurious, it's an outdoor venue. It's like a little amphitheatre, not too big, not too small, just perfect. I've never seen a band there, so I've no idea what that experience is like. But we played out there and we had L7 was supporting us, so that was really fun. I don't know, I love playing New York as well. We played some really cool theatres in New York, like Webster Hall, and the Beacon Theatre was really good.
Now you're kind of familiar with it. It must be cool to know we've got this show coming up in a few days, and we're going to New York and we're going to play this place or the West Coast, and it must be cool to look forward to those shows.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. I always look where we've got the days off as well, then you're going to be in it, where you're going to be all day. But sometimes it takes a bit longer to travel there and you end up getting somewhere at 10 in the evening and you're like, so you can't sort of look forward to stuff too much in case there's a delay.
How did you end up at the Playboy Mansion?
That was through my friend Billy Morrison. When was this? This was like about 10 years ago. Yeah, he had a band at the time called Camp Freddy, which is like they did a load of covers, but it was kind of like a super group with changing members. They'd had like Slash would join in, or Dave Navarro plays with them a lot. They still do it, but it's under a different name now. But yeah, he had this gig it was kind of like a corporate gig he had at the Playboy Mansion. And I just happened to be in town. I was working with this guy at the time in LA, and I had the day off, and he said, "Oh yeah, come down." So I did, yeah. And I ended up in the Playboy Mansion. I was in the foyer bit in the actual house. And it was all kind of like roped off, so you couldn't go upstairs or anything. I just thought that was it reminded me of a kind of like a museum or something, where you're not allowed to go behind the scenes or something.
You go to a stately home and you have to walk around the specific area.
It was like that. So,
was there any other celebs there or anything like that?
Well, I saw Hugh himself
in his dressing gown.
I think he was actually, yeah. Or smoking jacket at least, yeah. He walked past me in all his lizard finery. Who else was there? Oh, I met. So I was talking to Steve Stevens. He was very nice because he was playing in Camp Freddy at that point.
Is Steve Stevens like permanently rock starred out all the time?
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. From what I've seen, yeah. That's him, isn't it? That's another person that's just stuck by what they do and just done it best, you could possibly do it, I would have thought.
Didn't you get to do South by Southwest with Rachel Stamp?
Yeah, we did.
What was the response to the band there? Was that a Korn situation?
No. I mean, like, South by Southwest was a lot smaller. This was sort of early 2000s we did that. But there was still a lot of, there was a good variety of bands playing different styles. So, they were quite accepting. Austin's a pretty broad-minded place, so... No, I think we went down pretty well from what I remember, yeah.
You mentioned you used to go and see Flesh for Lulu back in the day, but you got to be part of the 2013 reunion just prior to Nick Marsh's passing. Was that a fun experience for you? Because they had such great songs.
One of my favourite bands ever. I used to go and see them loads and always brilliant live. And Nick's just such an amazing singer and songwriter, and guitarist as well, like really brilliant guitarist. So that was another dream come true, really. I love playing those songs.
How did that whole situation happen? Did you just know somebody who knew someone, or you just heard they were getting back together?
I'd known Nick for decades, really. So all the other times they reformed, Rocco was still wanting to do it, but at this point Rocco was very busy with his this is the guitarist Flesh Lulu. He's very busy with his eyeglass business, and he didn't want to go on tour or anything. So actually, Bish, the drummer, I think, said to Nick, "I'll just get Will, because he's into it already, he knows the songs." He said, "Yeah, okay." So did that, and we ended up, through a friend of mine actually, we ended up doing the Goo Goo Dolls tour because they're like massive Flesh for Lulu fans.
That's right. I saw you guys at Rock City on that date. I actually met Nick at that show. And
oh, nice.
I got him to sign my Some Kind of Wonderful soundtrack, which had I Go Crazy on there. I think John Hughes, the filmmaker, must have been a big fan because he had them on Some Kind of Wonderful soundtrack. I think they're on the Uncle Buck soundtrack as well.
That's right. I think you're right, yeah. From what I remember, I think it was his daughter that was really into them. His daughter knew about all these bands, she knew about Gene Loves Jezebel and Psychedelic Furs and all that. And so she was the tastemaker, I guess, But yeah, that broke so many bands, didn't it? That whole, run of his films at the time, Pretty in Pink and all that.
How was that Goo Goo Dolls tour?
That was great. It was a bit weird because we were we were playing a lot of the early Flesh stuff. And I think it's John, isn't it, the singer from Goo Goo Dolls. He said, "Why? I don't know any of these songs." Like, we played a couple of nights and then suddenly he goes, "I don't know any of these. Why aren't you playing I Go Crazy?" Because we weren't even playing I Go Crazy.
That's right, yeah. I noticed you didn't do it on that one. I thought, they had the set cut short.
I mean, it's a bit weird because over here, a lot of people don't even know that song, because it wasn't a hit over here. And we were just enjoying playing the early sort of more raucous stuff, And then suddenly we thought, oh shit, we better change the set around. So we ended up putting I Go Crazy in the set. And
this one's for John Resnick.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then we ended up going to Spain. We did a gig in Spain, and that was just off the scale. That was just like, we played quite a big sort of club there and packed out, and like everyone was worshipping Nick, and it was great. I was so glad he got to do that, before the end, and we managed to play one more London show as well. That was filmed as well, so hopefully that'll come out on a DVD at some point, because that'd be great.
Yeah, definitely. And how's your calendar shaping up now things are getting back to normal? Has there been some intense juggling with people wanting to book tours? Right, we can book a tour. And you're like, hang on, I've got to fit everything in.
Yeah, well, it was like that before, yeah. Now, I don't have any touring till next year now, so I'm kind of busy with my own projects and bands. My band, She Made Me Do It, we've been doing a lot of London shows over the past few months, and we've been writing and rehearsing for the whole time. Luckily, our rehearsal place pretty much stayed open for the whole lockdown. So Adam's doing a big UK tour, but that starts in February 2022. Till then, I've got just a few more London gigs, really, yeah.
How much preparation goes into those Adamant tours? Is it like a big production? Because you've been doing full album tours Is there a lot of work behind the scenes to pull all that together, or is it just a matter of, right, let's just nail these songs and get the rehearsals down?
Yeah, I mean, we just concentrate on the music side of it, really. Yeah. So, I mean, that last tour we did was Friend or Foe tour, so that we did the whole album. Those songs are quite complex, actually. There's a lot of parts going on.
Because I would imagine there's songs which have never been done live, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There's definitely a few on the album that have never been played live. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing about Adam. It's so varied, his whole back catalogue. You know, we did a Dirt Wears White Socks tour, and that was completely different because that's all the early new wavy weird stuff. Yeah, like I say, the last one was Friend or Foe. Yeah, that took a couple of weeks to put the whole thing together.
Finally, what do you think the 11-year-old Will would have said on the night of the Adam and the Ants show if someone told him he'd be in the band one day? Or did he kind of know that? Like, I'll be up there one day.
I couldn't even believe what I was seeing in front of my eyes at the time, I think. No, that was well beyond any kind of comprehension.
Yeah.
I think, you know. But yeah, no, I think at that point I did want to be in a band. So yeah, maybe I would have taken it on board and accepted that was my fate.
Yeah. Well, thanks ever so much for chatting with us.
Cheers, Rob. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much to Will Crewdson for taking us on a journey through all the cool projects he's been involved with over the years. You really need to check out his bands, Scant Regard and She Made Me Do It, who are regularly playing live, and next year look out for Will performing with Adam Ant all over the UK in February and March, and tickets are on sale now. For close to 150 more episodes of this show, you can find them all over at stvpod.com, and there is a straight-to-video Patreon page too where you can show support to the show in return for some cool exclusive extras, and all that info can be found at patreon.com/stvpod, and I appreciate you checking that out if you have the time. So that's all for this episode of the podcast. Thank you so much for the continued love and support, and for always coming back for more. It means more than you'll ever know. So until we speak again, look after yourselves and catch you soon.